Startup Unscripted. The questions you have with the truths you need to hear.
Help doctors get into practice the way they want to get into practice. Hashtag truth. That's why we put it out there. What we want to do is we want to bring truth to the startup game.
And now your host, Michael Dinsio.
All right, guys. Here he is, Steve Anderson, my guest for today. I'm a big fan of Steve. I've learned a lot from this guy. I've read his book, solid book. And I'm really excited to have him on today because this guy brings a ton of knowledge to the game of dental construction. And I can't say that about every contractor out there, but I can definitely say that of Steve. And we're going to tap into some of his knowledge today. So Steve, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for being part of it.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. And I really appreciate the opportunity, Michael.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. I mean, this is our pleasure. So Steve, give me a little bit about Denco, how you started, how'd you get into the game, why you still love what you do. Just kind of give me Steve Anderson 101 here in maybe a 30-second little elevator pitch, I suppose.
Well, I like keeping things simple, and the one thing that is interesting, I was driving to work about 26 years ago, and I'm going, I am tired of what I'm doing. And maybe some of you can relate to this. I feel beat up. It's all about numbers and just things aren't working. And I'm going, okay, so what can I do different? And then my next thought was, so if I'm going to do that, who needs help? And then I'm going, wow, Dennis just popped. No offense, guys, but Dennis just popped out there and said, Dennis need help.
Yeah.
And because of all the experiences I had up to that point. And then the next question is so how do I become a point of value to them, and how can I do things differently? And by the time I got to work, I had my business plan. Now, I understand we have a big drive of 18 minutes. And so
did a business plan in 18 minutes in record time.
But bottom line was, it was just about focusing on dentists. I let residential go. I let all my other commercial go. And I said, okay, what can I do to make this happen? And I went to the THE, the Pride Institute, and I did some other things. And quickly I realized something, that everybody has their own package. And they try to sell their wares, and they take the dentist and cram them into their program.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times they forget about who the dentist is.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden the dentists lose their identity. They lose how they want to do things, and they lose their dream. Their dream gets morphed and shaped differently
into a box,
into the
program,
into their box.
Yeah.
And I thought, this ain't right.
Yeah, I see that all the time.
So that's where the dream of my first book was, Blueprints for Success. And it was about basically a book that every time I lectured at the dental colleges, and that was my other dream, and I lecture at both Midwestern and AT Stills locally, to help them make better choices. And that was the whole idea. It's simple premise, but it was interesting of just, where do you start and how do you take off from there? And
guys, I want to remind you, we're talking to a general contractor. I mean, I'm saying that as not being a jerk, but what I'm saying here is that Steve actually cares about your dream, your vision, your business. You're not going to hear contractors talk like this, which is why he's the perfect candidate for a podcast interview. But like, the guy's talking about vision right now, and he's a general contractor, which is super cool because you're right, Steve. I used to be in the wheel, as I call it, back in the day, and now I'm outside of that wheel, and I'm seeing the wheel being a problem for docs because you're right. Everybody fits them into their program, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes, folks, for those of you that are not on the YouTube channel, but the program. So, Steve, general construction. How many projects you think you do a year ish, or over your career, whatever?
Well, we've done over 1,000 design build dental offices.
Design build. Okay, so 1,000 design build. So folks, if you don't know what Steve means by design build, rewind and go check out those other episodes. We kind of define that. We don't need to get into that today, but it might come up because the two things that I wanted to discuss today, in no particular order, is why construction costs have gotten so out of whack. And I know that's time stamping something today, but I'm noticing that it's an overwhelming, or it's a theme throughout my career, just in the last 15 years, that construction was X and now it's Y. And over the years, it's just gotten even crazier more recently. And so I want to discuss, like, hey, how's this impact the doctor? And why things are happening the way they are. And then number two, what are some things we can do, especially with all your knowledge as a design build firm? What are some things we can do to make a construction project more budget friendly? Doesn't mean that we make it look like a boxed, ugly, like, sorry, Comfort Dental, but a Comfort Dental. But there's absolutely things we can do, right, Steve? So I want to tap into that years of experience. So let's hit the first one. Inflation, construction costs are wacky. I don't think, I'll say it for you, you're not pocketing the difference as the general contractor, that your expenses have gone up, right? Is that what's going on?
Yes. In fact, my CPA, we were just had a meeting, Zoom meeting.
Yeah, just a minute ago. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so last week we were talking about, Steve, your profit's down. And I said, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'm cutting my profits. I'm cutting, but the costs keep going up. And the challenge is yes, my volume went up and my profits went down, and percentage wise. What's interesting is in this marketplace right now is we're getting hit from not only the suppliers, where they have cost increases, and you've all seen that, whether you go to Home Depot or the grocery store, wherever you go, even your suppliers and vendors.
Yeah.
But everybody has cost increases. And then on top of that, the challenge is the labor pool. For years, everybody says to their kids, you need to go to college. Well, unfortunately, that's left the labor pool out, the tradespeople. And not only that, but, in Arizona, they had this big thing where a lot of Hispanics went back to Mexico because they got tired and scared of the things. And here we're at an all-time influx of people, like in this valley. I'm told it's between 7,000 and 9,000 people a month coming into this.
I've heard that. I actually just heard that the other day in the Phoenix Valley market. Yep.
And what's really frustrating is that has a impact on the availability of professional trades, and finding a good plumber, and if you don't already have relationships with new plumbers and new electricians and stuff, you can't grow because nobody has time for you. You have no relationships. Then on top of that, the issue is they're seeing a premium, their work pool. So a good plumber and a good electrician are starting to charge premiums for it.
Yeah.
Because they can get it.
Yeah, because they can get it.
And then also they're struggling because they can't keep their manpower, and then they can't add new manpower to it. And so they can only handle so much.
It's a trickle down. It's a trickle down effect.
It's a tough one.
What's interesting, as you were talking, my audience is for the most part non-owners right now. Okay. And folks, you don't know this, but as Steve was talking about it, the same exact issues he's having is what you're going to have. The insurance companies are bringing the profits down, right? The volume is going up sometimes in a lot of cases with dentistry, and then your costs, like supplies and stuff and labor, are going up. So business is business, right? Small businesses are definitely getting punched right in the face, but Steve, you're still doing well. I'm doing well. Small businesses are still dentists are still doing great.
I work a little harder for it, but the big issue is like dentists, you love it. Once you have that passion, once you have that thing built within you, it doesn't matter really what I make. I just get the opportunity to go work. Yes, you'd like to make money, and
Yep.
yes, you'd like to be profitable.
Yeah.
And you need to be profitable to be there for your clients and your patients in the future.
Yeah.
So really, the idea is we're going to get through this, and it's a situation where it's a cycle, and if the government would just let it go its cycle, we'll be okay.
Hey, here we go. Politics. I like it. I like it. But this is a no politics zone. But I like what you're saying. But if we don't want to piss everybody off, we better keep away from that conversation.
I will.
Steve,
I'll step away.
I do want to hit a little bit on the labor and the resources, the lack of resource, because I'm finding, and this is nationally, not Steve and Arizona. This is nationally. I'm finding that the bigger players like yourself in Arizona are more resistant to getting more people involved on the bidding process. And I know you guys don't love bidding. I think a lot of the doctors want to bid because they don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage. And the bidding process does make them feel like they're getting the right price, that Steve isn't just kind of, and okay, so whatever, bid or no bid, let's just throw that out the window. But like the idea of not finding enough plumbers to get into the quote. So only you, like, for example, Steve only asking one guy for,
So first, let me backtrack just a little second about personnel. Personally, as a company, I've been very blessed with some very good people, and I pay them well. But on top of that, when we first started having increases, I gave them across the board a $2-3 raise, and then with outside of and I just did that again. And we just keep bumping their wages, and not because we think they're exceptionally well, we do, but on top of that, we want to make sure that they're not looking around.
But you're talking about people that you employ at Denco.
Yes.
So you do. So folks, I just want you to hear this, because when you're interviewing contractors, some contractors have no services in house, and they bid all divisions or all the things, and some contractors have things in house too, right? Steve,
and a mix of.
And so what you just described is the services that you have in house, and you're giving your folks a bump in a raise, which is great, right? Because they need money, and you want to stay on top of it.
They got to survive, and just the cost of living has gone up tremendously.
So just that part, but and that's awesome. And by the way, by Steve having folks in house, he can probably be a little bit more competitive because there's no markup in that particular division. So if it's framing, for example, Steve can get a little bit more competitive the more people he has on staff. But I want to talk more about the subs because again, back to my original issue is that the contractors just kind of have their favorite sub, and they just ask that one plumber to bid the project, just the one, and they're not getting multiple. And that seems to be a thing. Why is that? Give me into why is that? Yeah.
We pick trades for the project. When we have a very critical, time sensitive project, there are certain subs that I won't even include, and it just might be one plumber, one electrician, one mechanical, because I know, because of my experience and the challenges I have, that repeatedly we run into issues where non-performance, and they have excuses not to show up, and I forgot to order, and I didn't get the spec in, and all of a sudden they show up with material that we didn't approve, and just lots of issues. And so you want performance.
Yeah.
And so that's where we go to people that we know that can perform and do well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then back to, there aren't enough plumbers. So if there was enough plumbers that knew dental and did a good job, then you would be okay with bringing in multiple people, right? So it sounds like you've got in some situations, you've got one group that does a fantastic job, that always performs. And then you've got maybe two others that are just not getting the job done. And so then
we have we have the ABCs. We have the extremely ones that we can always depend on, and sometimes they get a little attitude, but we
deal with it.
They still do the excellent job.
Yeah.
And the issue is then we have the other group that they're good, but they're not excellent. They're good and they'll get things done, and we still get things done in a timely fashion. And then there's the C group where they might be a good price point, but man, they're hell on wheels from the standpoint of they just mess up with the schedule, and we're constantly rescheduling and doing things.
And who hears about that? You do. When the doctor's mad that you're not on track, you're getting.
Bottom line is schedule is the most important thing to me, because especially when dentists want to do a remodel, what are they interested in? As few down days as they possibly can, and they want to make sure that it gets delivered accordingly. And that's one thing we're known for, is to be able to deliver what we promise.
Yeah. Folks, I hope you're appreciating this conversation, because they're businesses too. They are the contractors, and they're getting hit from all angles. You're coming at them for timeline. You're also going to hit them up for quality, a punch list at the end of the project. If it's not good, it's all on the contractor's shoulders. And so by you wanting it all, and I'm finding that a lot of my clients want it all. They want the cheapest. They want it to be the fastest. They want it to be the best quality. Well, okay. I don't know if that even exists.
I just met a client yesterday that he's having me finish some things because he said, I can't put up with this guy anymore. And he's been on the project 17 months. It was supposed to be a 6-month design build. And after all that, he's saying, I'm told I'm going to have a permit. I've heard this for the last 3 months. I'm going to have a permit.
I'm going to have a permit.
Not a permit, a final C of O. I'm going to be able to, go to work.
Yeah.
And he's told this again, and we're going to go in and do some remodeling on a project that is done just because he doesn't want to put up with it anymore.
Yeah. Well, Steve, do you have the conversation with the client and say, hey, look, I can get this price down, but let me tell you what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to be 2 months late, and that can't come back on me.
Yeah. And even before that is, people, I would say probably 90% of our clients are, we're the only person that they come to and get a quote from.
Yeah.
And I say, why is that? Well, what's interesting, it's no different than I found in what I teach at the schools is, if you can trust someone, and the bottom line is, in our book, we talk about how you can tell they're trustworthy, and you want to do your due diligence. There's such a thing as earned trust, versus just blind trust. But with earned trust and you have that ability to perform, you want to go out and seek wherever you are in the country do your interviews and spend your time finding out, is it someone I can relate to, and someone that, little things, they say, I'm going to get to their quote to you in a couple days, and 3 weeks later you get it. Is that someone you consider? But unfortunately, there's telltale signs that you can tell. You just got done pouring your heart out, and the next thing they're doing, when you're done talking, they're talking about something totally different. Are they listening to you?
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah.
Or I just had an architect, I met with a client not too long ago, and he had a full set of drawings and plans in hand and said, Steve, let's go to work.
Okay.
And I finished. I said, let's set them aside and talk a minute. And that's the thing that gets missed, is someone asking you questions. And I'm looking at his plans, and I'm looking at him and said, you just got done telling me that the guy that you're hiring is 100 pounds bigger than you. And I bet you're too tight in the operatories. And you say, I had a specialist 10 years ago design it for me, and I hate the damn thing. The operatories suck.
Yeah.
And I said, do you know that all your new 6 operatories are exactly the same size as your current operatories?
And yeah.
And I said, you have a 6-foot hallway out in the hallway that we could move back 1.5 feet, and you'd have all the room you want in the operatories. And his mouth dropped, and he says, you could do that?
Oh my gosh. Come on.
But everyone listening, just keep in mind, that's what's missing right now, is just find that trusted professional that you can count on to ask those extra questions and come alongside you. And it's not about trying to sell you something. It's about giving you good advice.
But Steve, I work nationwide with hundreds of quote unquote great folks like you, right? Across the country. And I'm going to tell you right now, people aren't asking enough questions like you are. So my advice on top of that advice is not only just get good people that are asking good questions and listening. My advice is take ownership of the project and you ask more questions. You dig in, you understand the process, because if you back to the blind trust, if you're blindly trusting your team, who is the man, the woman who gets the job done in that particular market, there's still back to what we were saying in the beginning, the program, quote unquote, that everybody is fitting you in. And that's how you get a small operatory versus just extending it a foot, which is no problem. As long as it's ADA compliant, you get a wheelchair down, right? So, I mean, of course you can do it, but you just got to ask the questions,
But the biggest thing, Michael, that I see repeatedly is the doctors don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's what I come in for. But hey, this isn't about me. This isn't about me. This is about you. But that's exactly right. They don't know what questions to ask. However, I will say that the market is changing in that free information is very accessible.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good things to learn, but I'm gonna go there.
There's a risk.
Don't even this podcast. I mean, Steve and I are trusted advisors. We care about our clients, but Steve's advice for client A might not be for client B, and client B might not be for C. There is no program with Steve, I bet, or me for that matter. So even the information that you're hearing on my podcast or this episode might not be perfect for you.
Yeah, that's the little thing that gets missed is when I talk to students, and the big thing I say is, look around the room. Are you all different? You bet you are.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And the biggest single thing that gets missed in the programs that people put out there is they forget the identity of the dentist.
Yes.
And the one thing is you want people that are jump on board with you and help you to the process where they're looking out for your best interest. So they're coming up to you and giving you great ideas and options and ideas as suggestions.
Yes.
And that's what you're looking for.
That's right. All right, let's get back on construction, because that's what you know most best. I love having conversations with Steve because it never turns into construction. It turns into just good business conversations. But Steve knows a lot about construction. So we talked about inflation. We talked about the crunch that contractors have, where there's timelines and profitability and inflationary expenses like labor and lumber and all the things. Steve, let's talk about things that we can do to minimize the costs. What can we do to offset what we just talked about in the beginning of the program? Labor, all the things are up. What are some things that we can do to lower the cost in construction? Because construction is literally like 60 or 70% of the total project budget. So if we could focus on construction and value engineering and things that you know that I don't know, that the doctors don't know, if we could just save 10% or something in your department, that's big dollars. So what are some of those things? Yeah.
First, start with your team. Once you find that trusted person, ask them for options, because your situation is going to be unique in that fact alone. Start with your architect. Sometimes they create a situation where it's over designed. And so by going to your contractor, simple thing that I do is I always do a budget when I first get a plan, a preliminary floor plan, and then I do a budget when I get the final plans back. And then when I get my numbers in, I'm going, wow, electrical's really high here. And it's a quick catch for me to realize that, hey, there's some optional lighting. Sometimes electricians come up with some ridiculous lighting packages that you can save thousands, tens of thousands of dollars just on a lighting package. The other issue is going into your contractor and just asking for other suggestions. As you design the project, another thing to keep in mind is if there's a designer involved, one thing that we know about designers, now I'm going to be crass in this, is
go
like
do it. That's the kind of program this is. Go,
okay.
Steve. Go.
It's like herding kittens, herding cats.
Okay.
And the one thing that we know about these cats that are running around with these great ideas is usually they have no limit.
Yeah.
And so I've had so many designers over the year do little smoke screens and, oh, everything will be fine and everything will be in the budget. And in the last minute it goes, it's way over budget and we can't fit it in.
That's right.
And so that's where you need your team. That's where we talk about is find that trusted person to really help you oversee the whole project. And then also help you with those little things.
Yeah.
And then you get from your contractor and your trusted advisor to help you look at things that also can be added later. You might have some great design features, and I'm not knocking designers because there's a great place for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But understand is what's really important is understanding that there's a budget and understanding that we need to get within it. And by doing that, is sometimes it's simply taking this beautiful object out.
Yeah.
And you can still build the room and add whether it's a water feature or whether it's
no, not for startups. No water features for startups.
I agree with you, but whatever it might be. But whether it's a special wood wall or whether it's a special ceiling or something that can be added.
All right. So to Steve, to that point, I love that, folks. I just want you to digest this for a second. So Steve's suggesting that you partner with your contractor.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be so adversary. I mean, I get that in the beginning, you have to earn trust, like Steve said, but at some point you have to trust the partner. Okay. If I could say this in a different way.
Well,
and
yeah,
go ahead.
Let me give you an example. I had a doctor that I did a class at the school, and he took my book and he was getting ready to do his office, and we gave him the budget, and then we came back with a final price, and there were some things that he added, and so he got a designer involved. And he said, Steve, I went through and, overall I'm 15% high on my budget.
Yeah.
Steve, we need to come down. And what can we do? And I'm going, high five. He got it. He understood that there's a budget. It's not there to just look at and say, I can't do anything with. A budget is something in which you work towards keeping that.
That's right. Once you do commit to your partners, the best person, the best partner to your project is going to be with your contractor to try to find opportunities to cut costs. But they won't usually give you, some of them will, but they usually won't let you tap into their knowledge until they're on your team. It's like giving free advice and then you don't pick them and you go with another contractor after this contractor busted their ass and can get you all these $30,000 savings ideas, and then you just walk over to the other contract. It's not cool. So I always talk about, like, you got to find your partner. They do need to earn your trust. But you're right. The architects and space planners, when I was a banker, Steve, we got 3 minutes, so just hang tight. When I was a banker, do you know how many calls I got from the space planner and architects about budget? Like zero, like maybe one or two in however many years I was a banker. Do you know how many calls I got from the contractor about budget? Now, I know what you're thinking, audience. You're like, oh, those guys are trying to figure out my budget so they can max it out. No, they're trying to make sure that it works because they care. Now, sure, again, the audience, Steve, is probably thinking like, well, they're asking for the budget so that they can max it out and pad their profit. And sure, there could be some folks out there that are doing that. But the whole point is if you're not asking about budget, then are you really a partner to the project? I mean, you got to think about it the other way too. Sure, there could be some bad guys out there, but if someone isn't asking about budget, then are they really spending your money wisely? I don't know. Thoughts about that?
And also asking whether there is a budget, and some people just say, "Oh, it'll just work," and there's always. I had a client that I did 5 offices for. We're about to do his 6th, and he goes, "I've got it all covered, and we're fine." And I said, "Toy with me," and we went through a budget form that I have, and I said, "Let's just go through this," and we did it. And came up with a number, and I said, "So what were you expecting?" He says, "About $150,000 less." But it wasn't just construction, though.
Yeah, it was
we
all
also were talking about equipment. We were
the
talking
things.
about all these things, and he's going, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
So it's important.
Well, Steve, sorry to speed that last segment up. We're out of time. I so appreciate your knowledge. Folks, if you haven't gotten Steve's book, check it out. Steve's a fantastic resource for you. Denco is a fantastic company to partner with. I know that most of my audience is national. Steve primarily works in Arizona. So if you're an Arizona doc, you need to reach out to Steve. But thank you, sir. Any last bit before we get cut off here? Any last thing?
Just follow your passion, and be true to yourself.